My straight actor co-star kissed me after the director called cut gay love story. Hello everyone, and welcome back. If you enjoy emotional gay love stories with romance, powerful twists, and unforgettable endings, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. And before we begin, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We love seeing viewers from all over the world. Thank you for being here. Now let's dive into today's story. He kissed me twice, and only one of those kisses was in the script. That was the thought running through Wesley Hart's head while 30 people on a Los Angeles soundstage suddenly became very interested in cables, coffee cups, and anything that wasn't him. 5 seconds earlier, Wesley had been doing his job. Stand on the blue tape. Look devastated. Listen to Dominic Vale deliver the heartbreakingly dramatic line the screenwriter had probably written at 2 in the morning. Then let Dominic kiss him before Wesley's character walked away forever. Easy. Professional. Completely fake. Wesley had repeated that last part to himself approximately 900 times during production because Dominic Vale was straight, famous, annoyingly kind, and equipped with the kind of smile that made rational thought file for early retirement. The scene went perfectly. Dominic caught Wesley's hand. Wesley turned. Their characters exchanged one final look, and Dominic kissed him exactly as rehearsed. Somewhere beyond the lights, director Claire Bennett called, "Cut. Beautiful. We got it." Wesley relaxed immediately. The movie moment was over. Crew members started moving. Someone rolled a lighting stand across the floor. Wesley was already preparing a joke about finally escaping emotional devastation before lunch when he noticed something strange. Dominic hadn't moved. His hand was still resting lightly at Wesley's waist. His expression had changed too. The polished movie star confidence was gone. For one strange second, Dominic looked almost nervous. Wesley swallowed. Dominic?" Dominic glanced at his mouth, then back at his eyes. That should have been Wesley's warning. Instead, his brain apparently clocked out. Dominic leaned forward and kissed him again. It was brief, gentle, and unmistakably real because there was no dialogue leading into it, no camera waiting for it, and absolutely nothing about it on page 87 of the script. Then Dominic stepped back like he had surprised himself. Wesley stared at him. Dominic stared back. Somewhere behind them, somebody dropped a roll of tape. Wesley's brain finally restarted. "You know Claire called cut, right?" Dominic's ears turned pink. "I heard her." Wesley blinked. "That is an extremely concerning answer." Dominic opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Incredible. Dominic Vale, the man who could memorize 6 pages of dialogue before breakfast, had apparently forgotten every word in the English language. "Sorry," Dominic finally said. Wesley folded his arms because otherwise he might start checking whether gravity still worked. "Which kiss are you apologizing for?" Dominic looked at him for one long, impossible second. Then his gaze dropped. "I don't know." And somehow that answer was worse. Much worse. Because Wesley knew exactly what the first kiss had meant. It belonged to the movie. It belonged to 2 fictional men standing beneath artificial moonlight on a soundstage in Burbank. But the second kiss? Wesley had absolutely no idea who that one belonged to. 6 weeks earlier, before any of this happened, Wesley had believed his biggest problem was landing his first major romantic lead opposite Hollywood's favorite straight heartthrob. He had been wrong. His biggest problem was going to be remembering that Dominic Vale was supposed to be pretending. 6 weeks earlier, Wesley Hart walked into stage 12 carrying an iced vanilla latte, a brand new script, and the completely reasonable hope that his co-star would have the personality of an expired parking meter. It would make everything easier. Unfortunately, Dominic Vale was standing beside the craft services table thanking a production assistant for remembering his coffee order, which immediately ruined Wesley's plan. Dominic was supposed to be Hollywood manufactured perfection. Expensive haircut, perfect smile, magazine covers, and enough romantic comedies to convince half of America that airports were reasonable places to confess love. Instead, he remembered crew members' names, laughed at terrible jokes, and held doors open without checking whether anyone important was watching. Disgusting. Wesley had been on set for 11 minutes and already needed Dominic to develop one deeply unattractive hobby. Maybe competitive taxidermy. "Wesley," Dominic approached with 2 coffee cups. "Claire said you take yours with oat milk." Wesley looked at the cup, then at him. "You brought me coffee?" "I was already getting one." "Good. For a second I thought you were nice." Dominic smiled. There it was. That stupid smile. Wesley accepted the coffee and silently informed his heart that workplace professionalism was still available as a lifestyle choice. Their first chemistry read had been 3 days earlier, and Claire had spent most of it staring at them like she had discovered electricity. Wesley had blamed the script. Dominic blamed Wesley. "You make the dialogue easy," he had said afterward. Wesley had laughed because the alternative was taking the compliment seriously, which seemed medically irresponsible. Now rehearsals began, and the problem became worse. Dominic was careful. Before every scene involving physical closeness, he checked in quietly. "Hand here okay? Is this distance comfortable? Do you want to run it once before everyone comes back?" There was nothing dramatic about it. That was precisely why it got to Wesley. Dominic never performed kindness like he expected applause. He simply paid attention. During one rehearsal, Wesley's microphone cable caught awkwardly beneath his jacket. Before the sound technician could cross the set, Dominic pointed toward it. "Your wire is twisted." Wesley looked down. "I have been defeated by technology." "May I?" Dominic asked. Wesley nodded, and Dominic carefully straightened the cable near Wesley's collar before stepping away. 2 seconds. Completely innocent. Wesley's brain treated it like breaking news. Later, they ate lunch outside their trailers beneath a white canopy while the California sun turned the parking lot into an oven. Dominic stole one of Wesley's fries. Wesley stared at him. "That was mine. There are 40 more. That is not how betrayal works." Dominic laughed so hard he nearly spilled his lemonade. Wesley hated how much he liked that sound. Then Dominic leaned back and casually mentioned an actress he had dated the previous year. The reminder landed exactly where Wesley needed it. Straight. Right. Excellent. Boundary restored. Civilization saved. Wesley smiled, stole one of Dominic's fries in retaliation, and told himself this was simply friendship between coworkers. Then Dominic looked at him for half a second too long before smiling again, softer this time. And Wesley had the deeply inconvenient thought that 6 weeks might be a very long time to spend pretending he felt absolutely nothing. By the 3rd week of filming, Wesley had developed a scientific method for surviving Dominic Vale. Rule 1. Never interpret eye contact. Actors made eye contact professionally. Rule 2. Never interpret casual touching. Their entire job involved standing inside each other's personal space while pretending 30 crew members were invisible. Rule 3. Absolutely never interpret Dominic remembering Wesley's coffee order, favorite sandwich, preferred rehearsal schedule, or the fact that Wesley hated sparkling water. That was probably just excellent memory. Probably. The rules worked beautifully for almost 48 hours. Then Dominic fell asleep on Wesley's shoulder during the ride back from a location shoot in Malibu. Wesley sat perfectly still in the production van, staring through the window as the Pacific Coast Highway rolled past. Dominic's head rested against him with complete, unconscious trust. Wesley looked down once. Mistake. Dominic looked younger asleep, less like the polished celebrity from billboards and more like an exhausted guy who had been working 12-hour days. Wesley considered waking him. Instead, he stayed frozen for nearly 30 minutes because apparently losing circulation in one arm was preferable to disturbing Dominic Vale. When Dominic finally woke, he blinked at Wesley. "Was I sleeping on you?" "No. You were performing an experimental gravity exercise." Dominic straightened. Immediately. "Sorry. You owe my shoulder financial compensation." Dominic laughed, and there went Wesley's emotional stability again. 2 days later came another incident. They were filming an argument scene in a small apartment set, and Wesley had a streak of stage makeup near the corner of his mouth. After Claire called cut, Dominic glanced at him and said, "Hold still." Before Wesley could ask why, Dominic gently wiped the mark away with his thumb. The gesture lasted barely a second. Dominic stepped back normally. Wesley forgot what year it was. "What?" Dominic asked. "Nothing. You are looking at me strangely. I am reconsidering several life choices." Dominic smiled. "Should I be worried?" "Almost certainly." The worst part was that these moments kept happening. Dominic guided Wesley through a crowded hallway with a light hand near his back. Dominic saved him the last blueberry muffin at breakfast. Dominic noticed when Wesley was cold during a late outdoor shoot and quietly handed him an extra jacket. Then, just when Wesley's imagination started building an entire romantic conspiracy, Dominic would casually mention an old girlfriend or joke about how strange it was that the internet already believed they were secretly dating. Push, pull, hope, reality. Wesley became increasingly convinced his own brain was his greatest enemy. One afternoon, they rehearsed a quiet scene where their characters sat inches apart and exchanged a confession. Wesley finished his line. Dominic was supposed to answer immediately. He did not. He simply looked at Wesley. 1 second passed. Then 2. Dominic. Wesley whispered. Dominic blinked. Sorry. Forgot the line. Wesley stared at him. Dominic Vale had never forgotten the line. Not once. Claire called for them to reset, and Dominic quickly looked away. Wesley told himself it meant nothing. He told himself again that evening when Dominic brought him coffee without asking. He told himself the next morning when their fingers touched while exchanging scripts and Dominic pulled his hand back too quickly. It meant nothing. It had to mean nothing. But somewhere between the lingering looks and all those tiny almost moments, Wesley began wondering whether Dominic was trying just as hard not to notice them. The scene that changed everything was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon, which Wesley considered deeply unfair because life-changing emotional disasters should at least have the courtesy to happen on Fridays. The set had been transformed into a quiet apartment at night, complete with artificial rain against the windows and soft city lights glowing beyond the glass. It was the final breakup scene between their characters, the one Claire had been talking about for weeks. Wesley had read it so many times he could practically recite Dominic's lines with him. The scene was simple. Dominic's character stopped Wesley's character from leaving, confessed what he had been too afraid to admit, and kissed him goodbye. Professional. Choreographed. Safe. Wesley repeated those words while the crew prepared around them. Dominic was unusually quiet. You good? Wesley asked. Dominic nodded, then immediately proved he was not good by asking. Do you ever get tired of pretending? Wesley raised an eyebrow. That is a concerning question to ask an actor. Dominic smiled faintly. I meant in scenes. Sure you did. Claire called everyone into position before Dominic could respond. They took their marks. The room settled. Cameras rolled. Wesley disappeared into character, or tried to. Dominic caught his hand exactly as rehearsed. Wesley turned. Then Dominic delivered the confession. I do not know who I am when I am not pretending I do not want you. Wesley had heard that line during rehearsals at least 20 times. This time it sounded different. Quieter. Less polished. Dominic looked directly at him, and for one impossible second Wesley forgot there was a camera 10 feet away. He forgot the crew. He forgot the script. Dominic stepped closer. The kiss happened exactly as planned, brief and tender, nothing more than the scene required. Wesley let his character hesitate before stepping away. Then Claire's voice crossed the soundstage. Cut. Beautiful. We got it. Wesley exhaled. Done. Except Dominic's hand was still at his waist. Wesley looked down at it, then up. Dominic had not stepped away. Dominic. Wesley said softly. Something uncertain moved across Dominic's face. Then Dominic leaned forward and kissed him again. No cue. No scripted movement. No reason Wesley could explain. It lasted only a moment, but there was no mistaking what had happened. When Dominic stepped back, the entire soundstage seemed strangely quiet. Wesley's heart was beating hard enough to make concentrating difficult. Humor arrived first, because humor always arrived when Wesley's emotions became inconvenient. You know Claire called cut, right? Dominic's ears turned pink. I heard her. Wesley stared. That is an extremely concerning answer. Dominic looked like he wanted to say something, but whatever sentence existed in his head apparently missed its flight. Sorry, he finally murmured. Wesley folded his arms. Which kiss are you apologizing for? Dominic's gaze dropped. I do not know. There it was. Not an explanation. Not even close. Dominic stepped away, exchanged a few quiet words with Claire, and disappeared toward his trailer. Wesley remained beside the fake apartment window while artificial rain continued sliding down artificial glass. 20 minutes later, Dominic had still not returned. Wesley told himself the second kiss had been leftover emotion from the scene. Actors got carried away. Moments blurred. It happened. That explanation was sensible, comfortable, and almost convincing. Then Wesley remembered Dominic saying he had heard Claire call cut. He had known the scene was over. He had kissed Wesley anyway. And suddenly the question was no longer whether Wesley had imagined all those lingering looks. The question was what Dominic had been trying not to say. By Friday morning, Wesley had decided the second kiss had never happened. This was an excellent plan with only one minor flaw. Dominic apparently remembered it too. He arrived on set 10 minutes early, greeted everyone politely, accepted his coffee, and treated Wesley with the careful professionalism usually reserved for visiting executives and unfamiliar dogs. No stolen fries. No terrible jokes. No quiet smile from across the makeup room. When they rehearsed, Dominic asked permission before every required touch, which should have felt normal because he had always been considerate. Instead, the sudden formality felt like someone had drawn a bright yellow line between them overnight. Wesley hated that he noticed. He hated even more that he understood exactly what it probably meant. Regret. Simple. Clean. Painfully familiar. So Wesley did what he had learned to do years ago. He made it easy. He smiled. He joked with the crew. He delivered every line perfectly and never once asked Dominic what had happened. By lunch, Claire complimented their professionalism. Wesley nearly laughed. If emotional avoidance earned awards, they were both headed for acceptance speeches. Dominic found him outside his trailer that afternoon. Can we talk? Wesley kept reading his script. We are talking right now. Look at us. Communication. Wesley. The softness in Dominic's voice almost worked. Almost. Wesley closed the script. What? Dominic glanced toward the soundstage, then back at him. About yesterday. Nothing happened yesterday. Dominic frowned. Something happened. Then congratulations. You have successfully identified the problem. Dominic went quiet. Wesley immediately regretted the sharpness, but he was too tired to pretend this did not matter. You kissed me after the scene ended, Wesley said. Then you apologized, disappeared, and spent today acting like I am a coworker you met at a conference. I am trying not to make you uncomfortable. You are doing an incredible job making me uncomfortable in a completely different way. Dominic rubbed a hand over his face. I do not know what I am doing. There it was again. Confusion. Wesley knew that word. He had once spent months waiting for someone else to become certain enough to acknowledge him outside closed doors. He had promised himself he would never volunteer for that role again. Then figure it out, Wesley said quietly. But do not use me to do it. Dominic looked genuinely hurt. That is not what I am doing. Maybe not intentionally. Wesley stood. I like you, Dominic. The words escaped before he could stop them. Dominic froze. Wesley gave a small, humorless laugh. Great. Fantastic. Apparently honesty has arrived. Without an appointment. Wesley, No. Please listen. Wesley steadied himself. I like you enough that I cannot be an experiment. I cannot be the person you kiss because you are curious, then avoid because it scares you. Whatever you are trying to understand about yourself, I respect it. I really do. But I cannot become the answer you test. Dominic stared at him for a long moment. You think that is why I kissed you? Wesley swallowed. I do not know why you kissed me. That is the problem. Someone called Dominic back to set. Neither moved at first. Then Dominic nodded slowly. Okay. No defense. No dramatic promise. He simply stepped away. Wesley watched him leave and told himself he had done the right thing. It did not feel like winning. It felt like closing a door he desperately wanted Dominic to learn how to open. For the next 4 days, Dominic respected the boundary so perfectly that Wesley began to resent him for being good at it. There were no lingering looks he could confidently identify, no unnecessary conversations outside their trailers, and no coffee appearing beside Wesley before he remembered to order one. Dominic was warm, polite, professional, and approximately as emotionally accessible as a hotel lobby. Wesley had asked for space. Apparently, he had forgotten to specify that getting exactly what he asked for was not supposed to feel like losing something. Then Tuesday brought rain. Real rain this time. The kind that turned Los Angeles traffic into a citywide philosophical crisis. Their exterior shoot was canceled, most of the crew left early, and Wesley stayed behind in the nearly empty soundstage to review scenes for the following morning. He was sitting on the fake apartment couch with his script balanced on one knee when footsteps crossed the quiet floor. He did not need to look up. He had become embarrassingly good at recognizing Dominic's footsteps. Claire left 20 minutes ago, Wesley said. I know. Dominic stopped several feet away. Wesley turned a page he had already read 3 times. Then either you are lost or this conversation is about to become emotionally expensive. Probably the second one. Wesley finally looked up. Dominic seemed tired, but not uncertain in the same way he had been after the kiss. His hands stayed in his jacket pockets. He did not come closer. Wesley noticed that too. Of course he did. I figured something out, Dominic said. Congratulations. I hear people do that all the time. Dominic almost smiled. You were right about one thing. I needed to understand what was happening before I talked to you. Wesley's humor faded, and Dominic took a breath. I did not kiss you because I wanted to find out whether I could like a man. I kissed you because by then I already knew I wanted to kiss you, and that scared me more than the question ever did. Wesley waited. Rain tapped softly against the studio roof. Then why did you? Dominic looked directly at him. Because for 5 weeks, I had been trying not to. Wesley forgot the next sarcastic sentence he had prepared. Dominic continued before he could recover. I noticed you during the chemistry read. Then I started looking forward to rehearsals because you would be there. I knew your coffee order because I wanted to know it. I saved you that muffin because you always took the blueberry ones first. I forgot my line because I was looking at you and thinking about something that had nothing to do with the scene. Wesley stared at him. Suddenly, every tiny moment from the previous month rearranged itself into a picture he had been afraid to see. Dominic, I am not asking you for anything. Dominic's voice stayed calm. You said you would not be somebody's experiment. I heard you. I am not going to argue with that boundary. Wesley stood slowly. You have called yourself straight in basically every interview since civilization invented entertainment journalism. I know. That seems relevant. It is. Dominic looked down briefly, then met his eyes again. I do not have a perfect explanation yet. Maybe I have been using one word because it was simple. Maybe what I feel does not fit inside what I thought I knew about myself. I am trying to be honest about not knowing. Wesley's chest tightened. And what do you know? Dominic answered immediately. That the kiss scared me because it felt honest. And walking away afterwards scared me more, because I knew I had hurt you trying to protect myself. Silence settled between them. No cameras. No crew. No script waiting to rescue either of them. Dominic stepped backward, giving Wesley even more room. You do not owe me an answer, he said. I just did not want you believing you were something I tried once and regretted. Then he turned toward the exit. Wesley watched him walk away beneath the dim studio lights. And for the first time since the kiss, the problem was not that Dominic was confused. The problem was that Dominic had just made one thing painfully clear. By Wednesday morning, Wesley had convinced himself that Dominic's confession changed nothing. By Wednesday afternoon, the internet had other plans. A behind-the-scenes video from the production appeared online, barely 40 seconds long, showing Wesley and Dominic laughing between takes, arguing over a coffee cup, and forgetting a line because Dominic was apparently too busy smiling at Wesley. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Their names trended together. Fans slowed down glances, analyzed body language, and turned Dominic stealing Wesley's blueberry muffin into evidence worthy of a federal investigation. Wesley discovered this while sitting in the makeup chair. Apparently we are in love, he told Dominic when he entered. Dominic paused. That was fast. Someone made a 7-minute video about the way you look at me. Dominic set down his coffee. 7 minutes? Do not sound impressed. I am wondering where they found 7 minutes of footage. Wesley looked at him. Dominic's mouth twitched. That tiny almost smile was the first glimpse of their old rhythm in days, and Wesley hated how relieved it made him feel. Then the studio called them into a publicity meeting. The marketing team was delighted. Their chemistry was generating attention before the movie even had a trailer. The plan was simple: lean into it. Sit together during interviews. Trade playful jokes. Give fans harmless moments to discuss. Nothing dishonest, they insisted. Just promotion. Wesley nearly admired the irony. For weeks, he had been desperately trying to decide which moments between them were real. Now professionals were being paid to manufacture fake ones. So you want us to flirt, Wesley said. The publicist smiled carefully. We want you to have fun with the audience. That is corporate for yes. Dominic glanced at Wesley, but said nothing. The first promotional interview happened 2 days later. The host grinned at them and asked who had broken character most often. Dominic pointed immediately at Wesley. He makes faces right before serious scenes. Wesley looked offended. I have an expressive face. You crossed your eyes during my emotional monologue. You were taking yourself too seriously. The audience laughed. For several minutes, everything felt easy again. Then the host leaned forward. People online are obsessed with your chemistry. How much of that is acting? Wesley felt Dominic become still beside him. There it was. The question beneath every other question. Wesley smiled because smiling was part of the job. We are actors. Pretending convincingly is literally how we pay rent. More laughter. Dominic did not laugh. Afterward, in the hallway, Wesley checked his phone while Dominic walked beside him in silence. You hated that answer, Wesley said. Dominic looked over. Did you mean it? Wesley stopped. Which part? That everything they see is acting. Wesley's stomach tightened. Before he could answer, their publicist hurried toward them with exciting news. The interview clips were already performing well. The studio wanted more. More teasing. More chemistry. More of whatever people thought they were seeing. Wesley watched Dominic's expression close again. That evening, another message arrived from publicity reminding them not to discuss personal relationships during the campaign. Wesley stared at the screen and laughed once, quietly. It was almost perfect. The studio wanted them to look like they were falling for each other, as long as nothing real complicated the marketing plan. If the illusion sold tickets, everyone applauded. If the truth changed the headline, suddenly there were meetings, clauses, and carefully worded warnings. For the first time, Wesley wondered whether Dominic finally understood something Wesley had learned years ago. Pretending could be easy when everyone applauded, but honesty was where things became expensive. The premiere arrived 3 weeks later beneath a wall of camera flashes, polished black cars, and enough expensive clothing to make Wesley afraid of standing too close to anyone holding red wine. He had survived filming, publicity training, 12 interviews, and approximately 4,000 online theories about Dominic's facial expressions. He could survive one red carpet. Probably. Dominic appeared beside him in a dark navy suit, calm enough to suggest he had not spent the previous week questioning several fundamental assumptions about his life. You look nervous, Dominic said. Wesley smiled toward the photographers. I am standing beneath enough lighting equipment to communicate with satellites. Dominic laughed. Cameras immediately erupted. Somewhere, Wesley imagined a publicist celebrating. They moved through interviews smoothly until one reporter asked the question Wesley had been expecting all evening. The chemistry between you two has become almost as famous as the movie. Was all of that just really good acting? Wesley felt Dominic glance at him. There were microphones everywhere. Cameras everywhere. No safe answer that did not become tomorrow's headline. So Wesley reached for the answer he had used before. Of course. We are professionals. He smiled. The reporter laughed and moved on. Dominic said nothing. 10 minutes later, Wesley escaped into a quiet hallway behind the theater and finally exhaled. Was it? Dominic's voice came from behind him. Wesley turned. Dominic stood several feet away, keeping the same careful distance he had maintained since their conversation on the soundstage. Was what? Wesley asked, although he knew. Just acting. Wesley looked toward the closed doors behind them. You heard the question. What was I supposed to say? I am not asking what you were supposed to say. Dominic's voice stayed gentle. I am asking whether you believed your answer. Wesley gave a short laugh. You really picked a convenient night for an identity crisis. This stopped feeling convenient a long time ago. That silenced him. Dominic took a breath. I know what I called myself before I met you. I know what people expect me to say. I also know I have spent weeks trying to find a perfect explanation because I thought I needed one before I was allowed to be honest. Wesley's chest tightened. And did you find one? No. Dominic shook his head. Maybe I will eventually have better words for myself. Maybe I will understand more with time. But I am done pretending uncertainty means I know nothing. Wesley studied him. Then what do you know? Dominic did not hesitate. I know I look for you when I walk into a room. I know my day is better when you are in it. I know that when you pulled away, I missed you before you were even gone. Wesley's practiced defenses suddenly felt very thin. Dominic continued, quieter now. And I know the person I want is you. Not because a scene told me to want you. Not because people online decided we looked good together. You, Wesley. When nobody is directing me and nobody is watching. Wesley swallowed. You realize there are probably 50 reporters 30 feet away. I do. Your publicist might actually evaporate. Dominic smiled faintly. She is resilient. Wesley almost laughed, but the emotion caught somewhere behind his ribs. I cannot do this if I am something you only choose when nobody is watching. Dominic nodded. I know. And I am not asking you to announce anything tonight. I know that too. Wesley looked at him for another long second. No cameras were visible. No dialogue had been written for them. No director could rescue the moment if they got it wrong. Then stop acting, Wesley said softly. Choose me when there is nothing to perform. Dominic's expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough. Relief. Hope. Something real. He did not step closer. Instead, he held out his hand and waited. Wesley looked at it, then at Dominic. Finally, Wesley placed his hand in his. Dominic's fingers closed around his, careful at first, then certain. Wesley realized that this was what he had needed all along. Not a perfect label delivered on schedule, but a choice Dominic was willing to keep making after the cameras stopped. And for once, neither of them needed anyone else to believe what was happening. 3 months later, Wesley stood beneath a string of warm lights on the rooftop of a small hotel in Santa Barbara, holding a glass of sparkling water and pretending he had not checked the festival results on his phone 17 times. Their movie had screened that evening to a packed theater, and somehow the audience had laughed in the right places, cried in the right places, and applauded long enough afterward to make Wesley briefly wonder whether he had wandered into someone else's life. Then the announcement came. Their film had won the audience award. Claire cried. The producer hugged everyone within reach. Dominic looked across the crowded room and found Wesley immediately. Of course he did. Some things had changed since the premiere. Some had not. Dominic still brought Wesley coffee without asking. Wesley still stole his fries and called it justice. They had gone on actual dates now, quiet ones at neighborhood restaurants where nobody cared about box office numbers. Dominic had stopped treating every feeling like a problem requiring an immediate definition. Wesley had stopped assuming every uncertain moment meant abandonment. Neither transformation had happened overnight. That was probably why Wesley trusted them. After the festival party became too loud, he escaped upstairs for air. The Pacific stretched dark beyond the rooftops, and the night smelled faintly of salt. A minute later, the door opened behind him. I knew I would find you here, Dominic said. Wesley turned. That sounds romantic until you remember there are only 4 places in this hotel. Dominic joined him at the railing. Claire is looking for you. Tell her I joined a traveling circus. You would complain about the costumes. Correct. I have standards. Dominic laughed softly. For a while they simply stood there, shoulder to shoulder, watching headlights move along the street below. Wesley liked silence with Dominic now. It no longer felt like something waiting to go wrong. Dominic's phone buzzed. He checked the screen and sighed. Publicist? Wesley asked. Publicist? Are we in trouble? Apparently people noticed us leaving the theater together. Wesley nodded solemnly. Scandalous. 2 co-stars walking in the same direction. Society may never recover. Dominic turned his phone off and slipped it into his pocket. Then he looked at Wesley with that expression Wesley knew now, the one that had once confused him because it appeared whenever Dominic wanted to say something real. Dominic reached toward him, then paused. Can I kiss you? Wesley stared for half a second before smiling. You really have gotten better at asking. I had a patient teacher. I remember your first attempt differently. Dominic laughed, and Wesley closed the small distance between them. The kiss was gentle and unhurried, more familiar now, but somehow more meaningful because nobody had arranged it. When they separated, Wesley rested his forehead lightly against Dominic's. Somewhere below, music drifted from the party. What if somebody sees us? Wesley asked. It was partly a joke, partly an old fear checking whether it still had a home here. Dominic looked toward the glowing windows and then back at him. Then they will see me kissing someone I love. I spent too long being afraid of what that meant. I am not afraid of you anymore. Wesley went completely still. Dominic's confidence vanished almost immediately. Was that too soon? Wesley blinked. You cannot say something like that, and then look terrified. I am trying to be emotionally responsible. It is extremely inconvenient. Dominic smiled nervously. Wesley took his hand. I love you too. The relief on Dominic's face was so open that Wesley laughed, and Dominic laughed with him. Below them, Santa Barbara glittered beneath the California night. There were no cameras pointed their way, no marks beneath their feet, no lines waiting to be remembered. For the first time since Wesley had met Dominic, there was no performance left to finish. The first unscripted kiss had been a question. This one was an answer. There was only Dominic's hand in his, the city lights beyond the rooftop, and the quiet certainty that whatever happened next belonged entirely to them.